My sister forbade me to go on the trip I paid for the family, so I canceled her ticket and we went on vacation all together without her. I am 29 years old and come from a relatively close-knit family. We are 3 siblings: me, my younger brother, 26 years old, and my younger sister, Bonnie, 24. I have a good relationship with my brother, but I've always had a somewhat complicated relationship with Bonnie. It's not that we don't get along, but she has always been a bit demanding. When we were children, our parents tended to favor her a little bit because she was the youngest of the family. Although I have tried to let it go, there have been occasions when her behavior has really tested my patience. My parents spoiled her a lot. This was not a problem while we were growing up because I simply ignored her most of the time. However, once we started growing up and she started demanding more, things began to change. This year, I received a good bonus at work. My parents' anniversary was nearby, and I thought it would be a great idea to take my family on vacation. It's been years since we've been somewhere together, so I thought it would be a fantastic way to reconnect and celebrate my parents' anniversary. I planned a 1-week trip to Hawaii, covering all expenses, flights, accommodation, activities, everything. When I announced the trip to my parents, they were delighted. I knew they would be excited, especially for the location. I was sure my brother would also appreciate my gesture. I was just worried about Bonnie's reaction. It is difficult to predict her mood. However, upon hearing about the trip, both were especially excited. Bonnie began to speak excitedly about what she wanted to do in the Instagram video she would make. I took it easy, happy that she was excited. Everyone seemed excited, and I was happy to be able to do something nice for my family. However, that moment of happiness soon became bitter. When Bonnie began to insist that she wanted to plan the vacation, I told her that I was paying for the trip, so I wanted to plan everything myself. She made a fuss about it, saying, "I'm not good at planning things, so I should pass the responsibility on to her." It was not a request, but rather a demand that I delegate everything to her. There were a couple of reasons why I wanted to do it myself. First, it was my gift. Second, I know Bonnie's extravagant choices. When others pay, she reserves the most expensive things without thinking twice. I had booked everything according to my budget. Yes, she has that habit. If someone invites her, she will order the most expensive dish on the menu. On the other hand, if she invites, it will be something cheap. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting that if I was busy, I could ask Bonnie for help in planning the activities. I told everyone that the activities would be a surprise to keep them on edge. Bonnie insisted on knowing them beforehand to go shopping and choose suitable outfits for the activities. I assured her that it was not necessary, but she continued to insist. The way she tried to control me was so exhausting. I gave her the itinerary of the trip to leave me alone. Immediately, she called me furious and pointed out some things that had to be changed to make everyone feel comfortable. Her suggestions sounded legitimate, so I changed the schedule according to her recommendations. That fueled her ego. She said something like, "That's why I wanted to plan it. Attention to detail. See." This made me ask if there was the slightest issue with the trip. Bonnie would come after me with her sarcastic comments, so it was better to let her take over. That's why I accessed my account to make any changes. I told her not to make any important changes to the schedule and not to add or remove activities. She could only reschedule them after my approval. She agreed. She immediately announced in the family group that she had taken over the planning of the trip and had made some changes. Some of the additions she made were pretty cool, like wearing matching outfits every day. That was good until then. 1 week before the trip, I saw that she had canceled some of the activities I had booked and replaced them with ones she preferred. She also mentioned that she had made executive decisions regarding the itinerary and that everyone should follow her leadership. I was furious. This was supposed to be a gift from me, and she had taken it over completely. I called her, trying to reason with her, but she was determined. She said that since she was better at planning, I should let her take charge. I held my position firmly and told her there was no way she had already done enough to sabotage my plan, and now she should back out. She accused me of being controlling and hung up. That night, I received a call from my parents. Bonnie had told them everything, and they wanted to know what was going on. I explained the situation superficially so as not to ruin the surprise for them. I was hoping they would understand me, but to my surprise, they sided with Bonnie. They said that since she was so excited about the trip, I should let her have some control over it. They didn't seem to understand that she had taken it over completely and had ignored my efforts and money. They said it didn't matter who planned it or who paid. The fact is that we are family, and we should have a good time together in Hawaii. I felt frustrated and unappreciated. In a moment of anger, I wanted to cancel the whole trip, but I calmed down and took a step back. I did not cancel the trip, but I stopped participating in the planning. I thought if Bonnie wanted to be in charge so badly, then she would be in charge. I could sit back and enjoy, even if it wasn't the trip I had imagined. However, things took a turn for the worst 2 days ago. As we were getting ready to leave tomorrow, I received a notification that my tickets had been successfully canceled. I was like, what the hell? I immediately called the travel agency and found out that they had been canceled from my account, so there was nothing they could do about it. No surprise, it was Bonnie. I called her angrily, and she acted as if nothing had happened. I screamed, "How dare you cancel my tickets?" She laughed and said, "Oh yes, I did that, isn't that funny?" I lost my composure and screamed, "Would you mind explaining?" She replied, "Okay, I hate to say this. I know you were funding it and blah, 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 but we can't have you on the trip. You're too controlling and your negative attitude would ruin the vacation for everyone. I've discussed it with everyone and the family has agreed to leave you out. You are not worth ruining our trip." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The trip I had paid for and planned was now happening without me. My sister somehow convinced everyone that I was the problem, and everyone had agreed to move forward with it. At that moment, something inside me broke. I wasn't going to let her trample on me. I signed into my account and canceled her ticket. Then I reserved it again in my name and changed the password of the account so that she could not access it or make changes to the travel itinerary. I sent a message to the family group about how Bonnie had decided that I was not welcome on the trip I paid for. I have canceled her ticket. If any of you want to stay with her, I will be happy to cancel your tickets as well. The reaction was immediate. My brother called me right away and said he had no idea about Bonnie's moves. I told him about the argument I had with her, and he confirmed that she was making it up. He assured me that he never agreed to leave me aside, and I was pretty sure that our parents would never forbid me from going on the trip I was paying for. It was a relief to learn that at least he was not in favor of Bonnie's actions. While I was still talking to him, my parents called me furious because I had canceled Bonnie's ticket. I was accused of being mean and vindictive, but I maintained my position. I explained that I had planned and paid for the trip as a gift for the family, and if they didn't want me there, then I would be better off on a solo trip, but I wasn't going to give this away as charity and sacrifice myself. They confirmed that Bonnie was never asked to cancel my tickets, but neither were they happy that I was canceling hers. They wanted us all to go on this trip together. I told them I wasn't going to allow her to dictate the terms of my trip. Bonnie, of course, was furious. She sent me a flurry of angry messages calling me names. I forwarded the messages to my parents to show them what their daughter was doing. My dad called me and offered to mediate the situation between us. He said he would include Bonnie in the call and that she would apologize to me and I would rebook her ticket so that we could have a vacation together. I wanted to resist this demand, but part of me knew that Bonnie would never apologize, so I simply accepted my dad's proposal. He added Bonnie to the call. She was too angry to realize it was a conference call. Dad told her that she acted badly in canceling my ticket, so she should apologize to me. Before hearing anything else, she answered him abruptly that she would not apologize because she had done the right thing. We could both hear her say, "Apologize to that idiot." No way. Dad hung up the call. I had nothing more to say. After that, I called him again and said, "Now you see how cruel your daughter is, or do you still want me to take her back?" He remained silent and said he was divided between the two children. I know I did the right thing, but I feel sad that the trip will not be the same after this conflict. This is not what I wanted. I imagined it would be a family trip, and no matter how I feel around Bonnie, she is still part of the family. My brother and I may not be affected, but my parents will definitely be upset by her absence. Update: the situation worsened between me and Bonnie. After being excluded from the trip, she allied against me, trying to convince my brother to side with her. She proposed the idea of taking the trip together so that they could leave me out. He laughed at her suggestion and asked her if she had enough money to cover 50% of the travel expenses. She admitted that she did not have the money at this time, but promised to pay him as soon as possible. My brother shook his head in disbelief. We both knew it would never happen. She does not have a stable job and often misses work, when she is not in the mood. When she suggested going to Mexico instead of Hawaii, my brother burst out laughing, turning down her offer to be her vacation photographer for free. She hung up the phone and resorted to emotionally manipulating my parents not to be left out of the family trip. Fortunately, my parents stood their ground this time, insisting that she apologize to me if she wanted to join us. My parents tried to convince me to be the bigger person and forgive Bonnie, but they had no choice but to accept that Bonnie would not join us. As I boarded the plane, there was tension in the air and I could see the disappointment in my parents' eyes. When we arrived in Hawaii, I took control of the planning and made sure to enjoy a private luau. Snow adventures that even included a helicopter tour of the island. Despite the initial discomfort, we began to relax and enjoy ourselves. Gradually, my parents began to accept that this was still a family vacation, albeit without Bonnie. Throughout the week, I received sporadic messages filled with Bonnie's anger. Her texts were full of accusations. Even my parents began to see that her behavior was problematic. We returned from the trip with lots of fresh memories and amazing experiences. Hawaii had a way of dissipating the tension. Although my parents were still disappointed that Bonnie wasn't there, they appreciated the effort that had been put into making the trip memorable. Bonnie blocked me on social media and was furious with her parents for choosing me over her. She expressed the desire to cut them off, but she could not do so because she lived in their home. She called my brother a profiteer for supporting me and expressed that she never wanted to see me again. It was painful, but I knew I had done what I needed to do. I don't regret defending myself and setting limits, but I wish things had worked out differently. Maybe someday Bonnie will realize she was on the wrong side and we can repair our relationship. Until then, I will cling to the memories of that incredible journey. Update. Things got worse again. It's been a while since these incidents, but I finally found the time to update here. After returning from the trip, I went back to work and had to work overtime to make up for my absence. I didn't talk to my parents about Bonnie, but I knew she must have been throwing tantrums at them for enjoying the trip without her. To make her feel worse, my brother and I bombarded social media with family photos. It was quite fun. Almost 3 months later, I visited my parents and noticed that Bonnie's room was empty. I asked them about her and found out that they had finally made her leave. Well, not exactly, but she was asked to leave. Her life and career were not taken seriously. She lacked the motivation to work without a valid reason. Since she had no rental or food responsibilities, she did not take things seriously. A year ago, my parents required her to pay rent to live in their home. Initially, she became enraged and called them bad and greedy. When Dad threatened to evict her, she agreed to pay the rent. But in 1 year, she was only able to pay for 3 months. Each month, she found a new excuse for not paying. As expected, after my parents came back from a trip, she exploded. They tried to calm her down and even brought her gifts, but she threw them in their faces. In the end, Dad had had enough of her superior attitude. He told her to pack her bags and he would drop her. Her behavior changed immediately. She started sobbing, hugged Mom, and said she acted like that because she missed them and was hurt because we left her alone. Mom replied that she had brought this upon herself and that they had no intention of leaving her out. Her narcissistic behavior forced them to make this decision. She acted like she was crying, promising to pay the rent every month. However, my parents had already given her enough time to change, but she remained the same narcissistic person. This time, they did not give in to her manipulations and took her out of the house. Dad found a small apartment for her, even paying 2 months' rent. I didn't like how everything came to her on a silver platter, but it was better than letting her live in our house for free. Although they were still concerned about her welfare, taking her out was best to make her more self-sufficient. What they didn't know was that she was a tough nut to crack. Mom called me a week ago and gave me the latest news about Bonnie. Dad covered 2 months' rent for her. As he left, Mom gave her ready-to-eat food and snacks that lasted about a week. After that, she started stopping by my parents' house, staying until dinner time. Mom had to offer her food, and she even began to sleep over occasionally. At first, they tolerated it, thinking she had homesickness. However, after some time of this behavior, they decided to confront her. Bonnie confessed that she had stopped paying the rent and was hiding from them. She had not paid any rent during the 2 months she lived in the apartment. It was all with Dad's money. When Mom asked her what she had done with her salary, she said she bought shoes for work. Mom offered to lend her money to cover the rent, but she refused, insisting on returning home. Mom asked for Dad's intervention, and he was firm, saying that there would be no more help. He was fed up with her manipulative tactics. If she asked for help again, the door would not be opened. I thought Dad's response was a little harsh, but I understood his frustration. They had done enough for Bonnie. She sought help from my brother, saying she couldn't ask me because it would feed my ego and make her feel like a loser. My brother refused to get financially involved. She even asked him to borrow money from me and then lend it to her. My brother was like, "I'm out of this crap show, you need the money, you ask him." She asked him to not tell me, but he refused to keep it a secret for me, and that infuriated her. She became bitter towards him, calling him my bootlicker and my pet, running after me for the free meal. I took these stories with caution, but her behavior had reached its peak. Someone had to face it. I'm glad I was the first to stand up to her and leave her out of the trip. I literally remember how my parents reacted and tried to distort the situation to include Bonnie. I'm relieved that finally my parents realized how toxic Bonnie was and how she used her role as a daughter to manipulate them. The last time, to tell you, I've seen Bonnie. Not that I wanted to, but that's the way things are with my sister. She did it when I arrived one extremely tired Thursday from work. There she was, standing at the door waiting for me to arrive. It was a rainy, cold day, and I don't know how long she was standing outside the door, but she looked miserable. As soon as I saw her, I didn't know what to say to her, so she gave me a dubious hello. She was a little more energetic, so I knew it wasn't going to be good. She tried to hug me and told me, "How have you been?" Little brother, I just stood there with my stuff in my hand while she hugged me. When I finally got rid of her, I opened the door of the house since I didn't want to get wet anymore. But I didn't think to tell her she wasn't welcome. Besides, she practically pushed me in and went in without even waiting for me to come in first. When I took off my coat and my work stuff, I asked her what she wanted. She told me we hadn't seen each other or talked in a while, so she wanted to stop by and say hello. I told her to cut with all that crap and really tell me what she had come for. So she made that sad face she had always made for my parents and told me she had nowhere to live. She had finally been evicted after being a few weeks late, which I knew was a lie because my mother had told me that she had never paid for several months and had only received my father's money. I said no, so her next move was to pressure me to talk to my parents or my brother to help her. As I was not being a good brother, at least I could find it in my heart to help her not stay on the street. I told her I wasn't going to do any of that, and that if she wanted to at least win our parents' favor, she should improve her life. Maybe when they see that she has become responsible, they will want to forgive her. But she didn't like my answer, as she surely expected something else from me. She began to tell me everything but nice things, that I was a bad brother who, because I had money and a good job, thought I was superior to her, and that the rest of the family only loves me because I pay for things like the trip. It's funny because it's the only thing I've paid for them in my life. Anyway, I told her that I had heard enough from her and that she had dried off well, and now it was time for her to go out and get wet again in the cold night. I knew she had something else to say to me, some insult, but I told her it was better that she left or I would be forced to throw her out in any way possible. You can imagine that she didn't like my ultimatum at all. Finally, when she left, I blocked her everywhere. I had not needed to do so as she never contacted me again after the trip, but I prefer not to take any risks now. Where she's staying or what she's doing is not something I can know now. She hasn't even talked to my parents, so I hope this is the last update, or at least the next one is an update of her putting her life back together. Update. As many have asked me to update writing where my sister was living, I have returned after 10 days to tell you what I know. First of all, that same night after visiting me, she went to my brother's house. She tried the same as with me, but my brother didn't agree to let her in, so she ended up leaving. As far as I know, because my mother has been talking to her all this time, she has gone to live at a friend's or co-worker's house. I don't know what the dynamics of the two of them will be like, but I feel sorry for her friend. I mean, it can't be good to have a parasite living with you. But like I said, I only updated because I've been asked, but it's not like I care much. So I think this will be my last update.